Men have already arrived in the nation's capital for the event. Many of them came aboard chartered buses. 40 planes have also been chartered, and one boat is coming from Boston. Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan organized what he calls a holy day of atonement and reconciliation for African American men. CNN's Charles Bierbauer is in Washington, and coming up in this half hour, we'll go live where the march is already underway, beginning in the pre-dawn hours from the nation's capital. Andrea?
Reaction to the march has been extensive. President Clinton is focusing on race relations today, but not in Washington. Mr. Clinton is in Austin, where he will voice his concerns about racial polarization in a speech at the University of Texas. Aides say the president is not happy that Minister Farrakhan is leading the Million Man March. But Mr. Clinton is expected to speak today of racial tolerance and accepting responsibility for promoting racial harmony. Well, the president's speech is scheduled for 10 a.m. Eastern. CNN plans live coverage.
Good morning, Bill. What you're seeing is the mall from the steps of the Capitol looking westward towards where this huge assembly will take place here today. And you can probably sense that there are people who are starting to gather here. When we got down here a little while ago, it seemed like folks were coming in 2s and 3s, and now they seem to be coming in groups of 5 and 10. There's definitely a pickup in the number of folks coming down to downtown Washington. And in fact, there were throughout the night folks on the mall, some folks camping out, getting early position and good position for the gathering of what is called a Million Man March. There's absolutely no one who can tell us just exactly how many folks will be here for this. But there's one young man with me. His name's Philip Branker from St. Paul, Minnesota, who can give us an idea of how people are getting here. How'd you get here, and how long did it take you?
It took us approximately 20 hours, me and my other two co-workers. And we came from Minnesota, St. Paul. And on the way here, we even saw other minivans traveling, coming to this event here.
So people are coming by car, coming by van, lots of buses. We haven't seen the buses. Most of them will be dropping people off on the outskirts of town and getting them onto the metro. Mr. Branker, what is it that brought you? You're a young black man, so are your colleagues who are with you. What's the motivation?
Just the need for us to unite. There has been a strong movement for quite some time now to get together for a common cause.
And the appeal of Minister Farrakhan, was that something that influenced you, or was that peripheral to the fact that you just wanted to be here?
Farrakhan's presence didn't in any way influence me or has a strong impact, although I may not agree with everything he say. It's not about Farrakhan, but black men uniting for a cause. Is there anything in particular you want to hear? Just something that not just complain about what's taking place, but give us some type of solution or come with some type of conclusions that we should follow to get ourselves together so it can become more of an independent, organized people and get the fair treatment that we deserve.
All right. Philip Branker's from St. Paul, Minnesota. He and his friends drove down here about 20 hours. We're seeing a number of people coming in now. As I say, it's a little early to get any sense of how many folks will be on the mall, but certainly they are coming. Bill? Tell just how many of us there are. And no one really can gauge that at this point. The expectations are that this certainly could reach 500,000 and could go beyond that. And that's a number we really will only get late in the day from the Park Service. But there's a growing number of black men, to be sure, here on the mall. I saw a few black women earlier. I stopped and asked them what had brought them here. Actually, one woman said that she was with the medical corps, so that there are all kinds of ancillary and support operations going on here. Asked the woman if she'd have been here otherwise. She said no. But what is happening, and what we'll clearly see behind me as the crowd starts to grow from the Capitol out, is an extensive number of people coming in from all over the country. We've talked to people from Minnesota, from Chicago. Gentleman with me here, his name is Jerry Parries, and he's driven down from Cleveland with some friends. Mr. Parries, what brought you here? What was it that motivated you?
Well, I think what motivated me is the African-American brothers getting together, doing something for their community. We're pulling ourselves up, coming out, supporting one another, letting us know to be encouraged that we can fix our communities, that we can go back to our various cities and begin to work on our communities to pull ourselves up.
What do you do there? What do you do in Cleveland?
I have a record club, Partners in Gospel Music. It's a Christian record club. It's my total business. I own the business totally, and the Lord has really blessed us to do some great things.
A Christian record club. There's a lot of controversy about Minister Farrakhan because of the Nation of Islam. How do you relate as a Christian and the Muslim coming together here?
Well, I think it's a great thing. I think it's time that we break down the barriers of those kind of conversations. I don't think this is about a religious thing here. I think the purpose of us coming together here is about an economic thing. And I think the economic part of our relationship is with all people. And therefore, we have to band with Muslims, we have to band with Christians, we have to band with everyone that we can then pull ourselves up. So it's not about Louis Farrakhan. I mean, he's a part of this, and I'm glad that he's a part of it, but I'm also glad to be a Christian and a part of it. So I'm glad that we're all working together to be a part of something really great.
Is there anything in particular that you feel you need to hear?
Do I feel that I need to hear? Not exactly. I came to be encouraged. I came to encourage others. I think if we all can encourage one another and begin to be encouragement to each other, then that's the encouragement that we need, to know that we're not alone in this situation, to know that we're not struggling by ourselves.
But you've got to go back and you've got to reach out to people. There's an element of the community, especially the young black men.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. We're here to tell African-American men that when we leave this particular place, we go back into our own communities and begin to talk to our young brothers and begin to help them to see that there's a way, that there's an economic base that we all can work together, pull together, and pull the community together. And that's what we're going to do.
All right, Jerry Parrish of Cleveland, Ohio, just one of the many black men gathering here on the Mall. As you can see, as dawn breaks over Washington, there is a large crowd gathering here, and we'll be back with more and talk to more of them later on. Andrea, Bill?
Prayer vigil here on the west side of the U.S. Capitol has begun, and almost amazingly, this huge crowd, we cannot get a figure right now of how many folks may actually be on the Mall listening, but the crowd has joined hands and has fallen silent as the prayer vigil has begun. I'm joined now on our set here right next to the stage by Reverend Ron Wright. He is of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, and Robert Woodson from the National Center for Neighborhood Enterprise to talk about this Million Man March and what exactly may be happening here today, what exactly may be at stake, and what we should be seeing coming from this march as these men return to their neighborhoods. Now, Mr. Woodson, you, as coming to the stage even, you were heckled quite a bit coming up here because of some comments that you've made that are counter to what these people here have come here to see this morning.
Well, I first of all walked through about 1,000 young black men, and I got pats on the back, and they were heckling, not heckling, but just saying, you know, I thought you weren't going to be here, but we're pleased to see you. So I just think that the march is important for these young black men to come together. And if the message is atonement, if the message is reconciliation, if the message is restructuring, being a good father, being a good son, and if they take this message back, I think it can be a historic time in the history, not only of black America, but of this country.
What do you expect to see here, Reverend Wright? What do you want to see accomplished here?
Well, certainly I want to see come to success of us to one another. But black men have gathered here today because they are tired of being the poster boy, Charles Adams would say, of everything wrong and wicked in America. If it's date rape, it's Mike Tyson. If it's child abuse, it's Michael Jackson. If it's wife abuse, it's O.J. Simpson. If it's immoral music, it's Snoop Dogg. So we are gathered here to show America, and more importantly, to show ourselves that we are not like that. We are determined, disciplined,
there is but one God,
and above all, spiritual man. And so we're here today to demonstrate that to America and to ourselves.
And I think the most effective way that these young men can demonstrate this is by changing their behavior as well. And that is, we're losing 10,000 young black men every year at the hands of other young black men. And this is something that they have the power to control. They can control drugs in their community. And I hope that they will take this changed attitude and translate it into changed behavior.
Young men, that's what I see. That's what you've seen, I'm sure, when you walk through this crowd. Are you surprised by the turnout of the young black men that we've seen here?
No, I'm not surprised at all, simply because when you look at the statistics, when you look at the issues involved with us as men, when you look at the fact that in America, 13% of black males are unemployed as opposed to 6% of white males. When you look at 32% of all black men in their 20s are in the criminal justice system versus 6% of white males. When you look at the fact that 36% of black males are living with their spouses versus 60% of white males, it's no surprise to me that these young men are out here in the numbers in which they are.
All right, we're going to take a break right now. We're having some audio problems. Folks back in Atlanta are having a tough time hearing us, but we will be back with more coverage from the Million Man March here in Washington. I'm Leon Harris reporting for now. Back to Atlanta.
All right, thanks, Leon, and we will see you shortly. In Chicago, the theme of a demonstration of solidarity for thousands of black men making the trek to Washington is ringing home. Lisa Price reports from Chicago, the home of Louis Farrakhan.
A city long divided along racial lines, tension in Chicago runs high.
There's a lot of violence going on around here.
In the city's predominantly black South Side, crime soars, drugs are plentiful, gangs are pervasive. In their neighborhood, teenage brothers Jason and Dennis try to stay off the street, but they'll join thousands of others who plan to rally in the U.S. Capitol Monday.
Just to set a point across that we're ready to get on the move and rise as a culture.
Their father will be by their side.
They will get some sense of leadership that they can exhibit within their peers. They can get some sense of all of the great leaders and speakers that are going to be there. And it will help them as they move on in life to be young men themselves and be able to be the leaders in their communities.
More than 20,000 Chicagoans are expected to attend the march in Washington. They come from different religious backgrounds and varied walks of life. However, they all stand united on one front, the struggle to fight racism.
I want to make a package of all papers here for everybody on the bus.
A minority in this black community on the south side of Chicago, St. Sabina's Father Michael Flager will also be a minority in the march. For more than a year, he's helped Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan galvanize support for the event.
We have a checkout point in 159th and Torrance.
He knows the neighborhood and blames racism for the struggle his parishioners face. He says he'll march on their behalf in hopes it may in some way force white America to take notice.
America powers that be, political, business, economic, institutional powers cannot hide or run from a million African-American men gathering together in the city of Washington, the capital of this country, and saying things must change. They have to face that. They have to answer that.
So that means we're adding the 8 2 times.
Working on a degree in education, Ricky Harris plans to teach.
Good.
And even though he doesn't agree with all that's taught by the Nation of Islam, he'll participate in its march anyway.
We're desiring to be forgiven for, where we've lacked in the past, for our lack. That's what we're desiring, forgiveness for that and change. That's the common ground for us all.
Common ground that those who march share, and ground they hope not to lose. Lisa Price for CNN, Chicago.
Thank you.
What exactly are you doing here today with this crowd?
Well, we and some more brothers across the nation organized a gang summit, if you know about it, about 5 or 6 years ago. And we've been going around the country organizing the indigenous people that's in the street to support themselves and come to this march and atonement.
So what exactly do you expect to see from this crowd today?
I expect to see unity and togetherness, and black men coming together and standing up for principles.
Did you expect to see this many people?
We thought we'd probably see much more. We anticipated a lot more. Although all the negative criticism, and most people said this wouldn't happen, we thought the seed was planted 2.5 years ago, so preparation was already in the making for this.
Now, what a lot of people have also been saying is that what remains to be seen is what is taken from this march back to the communities. Your organization obviously is working on trying to reach people in their communities. How is it, what do you see happening here? How do you see men here leaving this place energized to go back and do just something different in their communities? What do you expect? How do you see that happening?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is that we are coming together in atonement to reconcile our differences. That's the first thing, to come together and fellowship together. Understand who your brother, who's your friend, who's the enemy. Then when you begin to do that, then you begin to go back and start dealing with the agenda. But the first thing you have to establish is order. If you don't have order, you cannot teach. So right now we getting back in divine order with God. Then we go back to begin to go back out to communities and begin a national campaign to stop the violence. We might not completely stop the violence. We can minimize it. But once you stop the violence, you can begin to deal with a spiritual, economic, and educational agenda. And that's what the Minister of Affairs are going to speak on when he come out here today.
Now, you talk about stopping the violence in some of the gang organizations you may have worked with in the past about working toward that end. Yesterday out here in the crowd, we met quite a few gang members from Los Angeles who have made the trip here. Is that something you think is going to be kind of common in this crowd?
Those brothers are here right now, not only from Los Angeles, from Detroit, from New York, from Minnesota, from Chicago. They're not here as gang, they're here as organizations to deal with atonement, to understand that they're not the enemy, that black-on-black killings, been over 80,000 killings have been black-on-black killings. We got to understand also that close to 250,000 of us incarcerated. Our brothers, some we got to agree to parents also, and the families that then lost people, the victim of violence. So when we talk about domestic violence across this country, we're talking about black-on-black violence. We have to go back and deal with all that. We got to get order. Before you can teach, you got to have order, and we are the order, divine order. We got to get back in spirituality with God and begin to teach God's principle. Then we can start educating our people. Voter registration, voter education. We on track. We continue to do this. By the year 2000, we're going to have an economic agenda plan that we're going to do for self and build institutions that govern society.
Personally, how did you feel when you stood up here on the steps and looked back and saw this huge crowd?
You know, when I came here, I'd never been to Washington, D.C., and I seen the White House, I was ecstatic. But I know if the White House can be built, and we can build a house. The same house they built, we're getting ready to build our own house.
All right. Well, Calvin Omar Johnson, thank you very much for coming by and stopping by and talking to us here.
I appreciate it.
Have a good time out here in the crowd. As obviously the group behind us is trying to have a good time right about now. Stay with us here at CNN as our coverage of the Million Man March in Washington continues.
Go ahead, John.
4 years ago, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan sent me to Kenya to find out the truth concerning Qumran. Everybody in America and Europe said that Qumran did not work. But for the past 4 years, Dr. Barbara Justice and myself have been using this medication, and we find that, in fact, it does work. To my left we have Brother Demetrius X. I'm going to ask him a question. Brother Demetrius, in 1992, what was your HIV status?
Positive.
Brother Demetrius, in 1995, after having 3 years of treatment with alpha interferon, what is your HIV status?
Negative.
All praise is due to Allah. And so we're saying to all of these more than 2 million black men that are assembled here today, if you don't know your HIV status, then you don't know the first thing about AIDS. And so we are urging every last one of you, as you go forward from today, you need to be tested. And we thank a black scientist in California for giving to us an AIDS test that will give you your HIV status. So brothers and sisters, we are initiating an abundant life health plan to sign all of you up so that we can safeguard our health. May Allah bless us with success. Assalamu alaikum.
Live continuing coverage of the Million Man March in Washington, where the audience now is being entertained by the Million Man March Choir. Really, it's been enjoying the music that they've been listening to all morning in anticipation of the speakers. And CNN's John Hollivan is out there in that crowd somewhere with some people who have come a long way to be here. John?
That's right, Leon. We're joined by 4 gentlemen from Miami who got up early in the morning to get here yesterday. Bernard Jennings, James Pierre, Greg Roundtree, and Reynold Monestein. And the 5 of us actually have been listening to CNN's coverage for the past few minutes, including your guest, Leon, who was on a few minutes ago, who was saying she didn't like the messenger or the message of this march. Gentlemen, let's talk about that. What do you say to somebody who is watching this on television today and not only is unhappy with Minister Farrakhan as a human being, but with the message of the march? Reynolds?
Well,
I'm sorry?
Bernard. Well, you know, she's saying some of the things that many people have said, but it's not really about the messenger, but it's the message within the message. And, you know, she said that we're not having the right leaders, but we need to choose our own leaders. And I think everyone that's here today is our own leader. We're all leaders in our own fate by being here and taking the stand to come together and not to only work for the 16th, but the 17th is going to be a new day. And the 17th is going to be different than the 15th or the 14th or the 13th. It's going to be the 17th and beyond. And I think that if we can all come together in the spirit of a cohesion, we're all a cohort of 1 million plus out here. And when we go back into our own communities and sharing with one another and working together, I think it's going to be a great thing that will happen, and it'll be a difference in America and throughout the world.
How about the rest of you? Jump in. What do you think?
I really think that we all blacks, the message is unto ourselves. We all blacks, and we all need to get together and know that we got to stop that killing. You know, all that violence, all that blacks and black crime, we definitely got to stop that. Because if somebody gonna stay on TV and say they don't like the message or the messenger, it's totally unclear, because you gotta look into it and know that, you know, we have problems in our community, because it's not only blacks and blacks that are killing blacks, it's other crimes that's going on out there. But therefore, we really gotta get together and know and stop that killing. We gotta come to a unity, you know, and have that power into ourselves and stop killing each other. We must stop killing each other in our own community.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the message of atonement that Minister Farrakhan talked about. He said that he wanted the 1 million black men to come to Washington and atone, but not to atone for things that black people have done to white people necessarily.
No, it's just a time for us to reflect upon the way we live. It's almost like a New Year's resolution before New Year's, to look back at our lives, what have we done for ourselves, for our community, and for the people around us, and for our friends and loved ones, and to see, okay, we've made those decisions in the past, what can we do, and what can we change apart in the way that we view things so that things can be better for all of us and for the community as a whole. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And is that the same message that you have? This message of atonement is kind of like a New Year's resolution?
Sure. To me, it's just about unity. We need all to get together and start somewhere. Everybody got to complain about what we need to do, wrong, right. But this is a start. We're going to go from here.
Bernard, tell me about what's happened to you today being out here. Have you been changed at all by being here in the middle of this mass of people?
Well, I'm sure you can say, too, as you're standing with me amongst all these millions of people, is that, you know, there's a spirit of love and a spirit of happiness. We're bouncing into one another, stepping on one another's feet, and no one's mad. It's okay, brother. You know, thank you. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Where are you from? And we're just happy to be here to see that we can come together under the terms of peace and accord and work with one another and look to plan things that we can do to help ourselves and the community and the world as we move forward, you know, into the 17th and beyond.
What do you think is the best thing that can come from this march?
That everybody just get along, and it's a peace in the hood all the ways. Like every black man just be united together and just say peace in the hood.
You think it's going to happen?
Yes, it's happening now. Nobody is getting upset with. There's 1,000,001 man out here.
Let me say something about the,
all right, sir, turn this way.
Something about the message and the messenger. They always say that don't attack the messenger, just accept the message. But in this case, a black man has brought a good message, and they're saying that you cannot separate the message from the messenger. Now, in the past, they've done it, so the message is a good message. The messenger is a good man, so accept the message. Forget about the messenger. The message is what is important, and we love the man, so let's accept the message. And later on, we will decide who is the transmitter. But the important thing is the message. So what is the message? The message of love, reconciliation, coming together, and black people taking responsibility. And we're going to do that.
Gentlemen, thank you all for joining me here. We're all out of time. I'm sorry. We got to go back. Leon, thanks a lot. We'll be back.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, John, very much. Gosh, I got to tell you, it's kind of hard to hear with all the action that's picking up around here. The program is well underway, and our coverage of the Million Man March in Washington will continue in just a moment. Make sure you stay with us.
Fort Smith, Arkansas. Good morning.
Good morning. I think the gentleman that spoke a while ago calling this a rally that's a much better word than a march. And I think there's many reasons, as there are people in this rally, for them being here. And I'm white, by the way. But my objection is to all these women, black or white, who object to men having this rally or schools or whatever, and they're not included. I think they have a self-image problem. And since I'm from an Arkansas-er, and I've been wanting to say something for so long and never had the opportunity about Clinton, he was not poor. I just want to get that too. He was not poor. He was packaged by Hollywood people as a poor boy, and he was never poor.
Next from Jacksonville, Florida. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to say some of the so-called black leaders. I've been watching this thing since day one, and particularly Gary Frank. And people of his kind. I think he jumped behind the Farrakhan idea because of his voting constituents, the people that vote for him. And I would also like to say that especially if you're black and you're not going to uplift this thing, stand back and shut up. This is more than Farrakhan. I don't agree with probably 90% of the things that Farrakhan says, but I do agree and realize that it is a thinking of the black in this day and time, especially the male. And I don't think that because they asked women not to come, that it was anything to that. I understand what it's about, and America understands what it's about. It's just that we have to use the media and rhetoric to downplay anything. Blacks should stick together as Jewish people do.
All
when
right.
you say something about Jews, they jump right on it. We don't do that. We need to learn it.
Thanks, Jacksonville. We have at our table two gentlemen who have been involved in the discussion of this march the many weeks before this day on October the 16th. I want to ask Congressman Donald Payne, who's a Democrat of New Jersey and the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, what he thinks of this day.
Well, I think it's a great day. I think it's a day that will go down in history as a day that brought unity into our community. I think it's a day that has been a long time coming. I think that, as you know, the Great March on Washington was in 1963. I happened to be here at that time and participated in other marches from Selma to Montgomery and so forth. But I think that it's a culmination of a lot of things that have been happening politically, socially. Primary when Michael Dukakis won the nomination. I think that the increase in the number of African-American elected officials. Back in 1960, there were only 260. Now there are over 8,000. So we've seen a lot of progress. We've seen a lot of movement on up higher. Of course, then what we've seen now is an all-out approach to start to take those victories back. So I think that with the Supreme Court decisions, one striking down affirmative action more or less, the other saying that race should not be a sole factor in drawing congressional districts. We've seen a contract on America that deals with poor people and women and middle-class people and put benefits, tax cuts for the wealthy, but earned income tax credits taken away from the poor. And so we've now seen a new assault on the rights of people. And so this march means to me a sort of a galvanizing, a sort of rededication, sort of a renewal that we're not going to let anyone take back those hard-fought gains that many African Americans died for. The whole question of the fact that only 39% of Americans voted in the last election. The percentage of African Americans probably was a bit lower, maybe in the high 20s. We can't allow that to happen again. And so to me, this march means sort of galvanizing, rededicating, and starting to move forward to stop the decline and the family values, to have men assert themselves more in the community. So and the other thing is that it really means a lot of different things to different people. That's what's very unique about this march. People are marching for what some will be atoning, I suppose. I don't need to atone. I've been battling all my life. I'm glad that some will be atoning so they can join me in the fight. So, like I said, it means a lot of things to different people.
I was down yesterday and purchased some goodies that they're selling. The Reverend Earl Jackson, here's one of the T-shirts that are out to see. Our Day of Atonement. I can't even see it from here. At 1 mint. At 1 mint. Yeah, no wonder I couldn't understand it. And then on the other side of this is Million Man, Washington, D.C., Million Man March from Jackson, Mississippi. Go ahead, please.
Very patiently. I just had to call because I'm a Southern white woman in my 40s, and I know that probably national average, I've got another 20 years to live on this earth. And my father went to Ole Miss Law School. He was a constituent of Senator Stennis, and I've seen the influential whites in this area that call themselves moderate racists that have never done anything overtly, I guess, against the blacks. But then again, they haven't stood up when things were being done to them. And I think I'm a big believer, as Brian can attest, that silence means consent in this world. And if you don't stand up against racism in this world, then you're guilty. And I'm not being very eloquent this morning, but I'll tell you, I was brought up in the Baptist church where I was told that Islam was of the devil. And, I got the Quran. You can get the English version of the Quran and see it's a wonderful way to live. They really teach good values in the Quran, but people are afraid of it. The Europeans are afraid of it. The Austrians are afraid of the Muslims in Yugoslavia. I mean, it's a bunch of lies, and you have to find these things out for yourself, because I'll tell you, what's happening here, we've driven these black men to this. I think it's very natural, because the abasement of the black men over the years, it's systemic, and we whites have an obligation to stand up to racism anywhere in the world when we see it. When we see the Palestinians abased, we should stand up and say fair is fair. I would stand up for any Jew that was abased, but I'll also stand up for any Palestinian or any black. And I don't have much influence in my small area here in Mississippi, but I'll tell you, we all have an obligation. And I think, Brian, you're doing a marvelous job. C-SPAN is doing its part in this world.
Thanks, Jackson,
Thank
Mississippi, for your call.
And, everybody wants to rescue the black community. I think that the black community has got to rescue itself. And frankly, it cannot be rescued, in my view, by Representative Payne used World War II as an example of calling the nation together. Well, Louis Farrakhan is not Franklin Delano Roosevelt, frankly. And you cannot get away from the fact that he is the one who's convened this march. He is the keynote speaker of this march. And the only thing that this march is going to accomplish is going to elevate, and it already has, Louis Farrakhan.
Well, you see, once again, I guess when you don't have a lot of self-assurance in what you stand for, you have to then worry about what other people are going to think about someone else. There is no question. As a matter of fact, I've spoken to a number of my Republican friends in the House. Many totally disagree with Jesse Helms and even their speaker, their leader, Mr. Gingrich. And when the vote comes down, they are in line, marching lockstep without one single dissenting vote, which means that they're not monolithic either, but they are following a leader. They have individual feelings, but they are galvanizing around one person. This is not a Louis Farrakhan march. The march received a tremendous amount of attention because Louis Farrakhan called it, and the controversy that everyone started writing about is basically communication. Many times African-American community lack a vehicle to get a positive, correct message to them because no one's going to fund a black station that's going to talk about things that are going to totally uplift black people. And so I think that I'm not marching because Louis Farrakhan called the march. I've been in marches called by people for years and years and years. And if we just hide behind a cloak that Louis Farrakhan is a part of this march, I bet you if you go out there, as I was 2 hours ago, and see these young black men coming down here, they have, many of them, have never heard Louis Farrakhan speak, wouldn't care whether he spoke or not. They're here because they're demonstrating that today they can show their support for a unified effort in this country, and they're there for many different reasons. And Reverend Jackson says that that's wrong, or it's something's wrong with people marching for different reasons. I just can't understand that.
San Diego, next call. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'd like to say two things and then end with a question, if you don't mind. My first statement is to the first caller, or a caller who called during your other two guests, who said that he was a black male, a part of the gay community, and that he was totally against what Minister Farrakhan is all about because Minister Farrakhan doesn't support the gay community. First of all, God said that you're not supposed to be gay and that you're not supposed to be a lesbian. It's all through the Bible, all through the Quran, and all through the Torah, which is the Jewish book, okay? So if you're against that, then you are against God. Second thing I wanted to say was it's a positive thing that these black men are uniting, because when the white men unite for any cause, no one has anything to say. But now all of a sudden the black men are uniting, and they're starting to show that they want to do something positive, and everybody has a problem with it, including our own people. Now my question is, I am a follower of Minister Farrakhan, to Reverend Jackson. I would like to know, if you are a true man of the cloth, why aren't you listening closely to what Minister Farrakhan is saying instead of going against what he's saying? Because if you listen closely, he's the only person that teaches Jesus better than probably you even do. Okay?
Thanks for your call.
Well, I've listened very closely to Minister Farrakhan, and Minister Farrakhan is a liar and a dissembler. And so I'm not about to follow him across the street, let alone to a march. But I agree with Representative Payne. I think a lot of people have been pulled in by the momentum of this thing that's been built up by the press, and I can understand that. I just hope that that we will go on in spite of the influence that Farrakhan is going to have after this march. And I think it is wrong to do that which contributes to his influence.
You have to, just before I get your response, how much longer can you stay with us?
I'll be here for a little while. I can stay. I have another appointment, but by 9-ish, I guess, I'll be all right.
Okay. Do you want a quick answer?
Yeah, I think that, as I indicated before, I've been one who have publicly denounced some of the statements attributed to Minister Farrakhan. There's no question about that. I've known Minister Farrakhan for many, many years. But let me tell you one thing, and I hope that he will just move towards having a unified effort, forgetting about one racial group or another. I cannot sit around and worry, though, about what he's going to say, because I do know the things he does stand for, as the lady who the past caller said. He talks about family values, and we've talked about it before. We talked about it in the church. I was brought up under strong Baptist family values. It's nothing new, but he talks about that. He talks about getting drugs out of the community. I've been to public housing. I don't know how it is in Cambridge, but I live in Newark. And Newark, New Jersey is a lot different from Cambridge. I don't even know if Cambridge has public housing. When the Nation of Islam goes in, the drug dealers move out. Drug dealers pry on poor, young black kids because it's the only employment they can get, and they almost force them into becoming little drug peddlers. Louis Farrakhan's people have gone out and said, we will push you out. So there are a number of positive things that have been done.
Got standing by over near the mall a gentleman by the name of Jacob Wheeler, who is with the First AME Church in Los Angeles. Mr. Wheeler, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I called you Mr. Are you a reverend?
No, I'm not. I'm a financial consultant with one of the largest brokerage firms on Wall Street.
What are you doing here?
What am I doing here?
Yes.
I'm showing my support for black men.
What do you think about the activities so far?
I think it's a fabulous event. I'm so proud to be here. As a black man, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else on earth.
How did you get here?
I flew in from Los Angeles.
What were the crowds like?
Oh, it was amazing. And you know what? There's a lot of talk about what's happening here, and there are only two negatives that the press can bring up. And those two negatives are Farrakhan and the exclusion of women. And both of those are ridiculous to even consider, because I didn't come here for Minister Farrakhan. I came here because for years, what has been happening in America is that black men have not been standing together. If a year ago, if you had told me that black men were going to come together and be as many as they are here, or even half this many, I'd have told you you're dreaming. Never are black men going to ever come together and do anything positive like this. It was one of my dreams, but I didn't think it would happen. And now look at this. And one thing that I'd like to say is, if you look at an example is the I told a lady in the airplane, she asked me why was I coming, and I said, she was a stewardess, I said, it's just like what you said when they gave the demonstration about the mask that drops down. You know, in order to help someone else who has the oxygen mask, you got to put it on yourself first, and then you do your kid. And that's the same thing here. We cannot help our children, our women. We cannot help this country that so badly needs strong black men until we love ourselves and help ourselves. And that's why we're here. And it's beyond the words of Farrakhan. It's beyond anything else. That's what it's all about.
Let me ask you a couple of quick questions about your decision process. When did you say, I'm going to go to this march?
The first day I heard of a million black men marching in Washington, D.C., I said, I have to go. I didn't know if I was going to go, but I said in my heart, I want to go.
And what about the crowd there today? Is it what you thought it would be at this point?
Well, it's so hard to see. I'm waiting to see it on television so I can see how many people are really here. I can only see in this one little area.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Chicago.
Where'd you go to school?
A little short background. I speak fluent French, Italian, a little bit of Japanese. I've lived 8 years in Paris, 5 years in Rome, about 6 years in Japan.
In other words, you've been around.
I've been around a little bit. I've been around the block a little bit.
The Reverend Earl Jackson, who is a talk show host, is here, and the Representative Donald Payne, and I'll ask either one of these gentlemen if they have something they'd like to ask our guest.
Well, I don't have anything really to ask except to say that I'm a pastor of a church. I have talked to Reverend Cecil Murray, who's the pastor of the First AME Church. Haven't had a lot of fellowship with him, but I have talked to him. And I know he supports the march, and frankly, nobody from my church is there. And but let me just say why. We believe that if you have faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and you proclaim him, you cannot go to something that would elevate somebody who, as far as I am concerned, does everything possible to denigrate him. Now, that's our position as Christians. It is going to elevate him. It already has.
I'm not here to elevate him.
But you're doing it.
I'm here to elevate black men.
But you're doing it whether you intend to or not.
Black men need to come together. You and all other black men on this earth need to come together and start doing good, positive things.
And we can do that, but not under Farrakhan's banner.
We can do that any way we can do that, whatever it takes.
Under the devil's banner, too? Would you do it under his banner?
This is not
I'm saying, would you? Would you? Of course you wouldn't.
This is not the devil.
Of course you wouldn't.
Mr. Wheeler, let me congratulate you for taking the time and the commitment to come out. I think that you have really said it all. That's what we need to have, black people from all walks of life. I'm in politics, former teacher, community worker. It's good to see people from all walks of life come together. And as you said and as I said, I'm not here because Minister Farrakhan. You know what? I wish I thought about it. Got a million called Don Payne's Million Man March. I didn't. You know, it was his thing. So I'm here marching proud. I was out about 2 hours ago, and brothers, were waving and smiling and waiting patiently. And so I think we have so many problems that for this day for us to come together to say, let's now start our own assault on drug abuse. Let us go out and do a little Pop Warner football volunteerism. This is what it's all about.
Jacob Wheeler, let me ask you this question. What if, this is probably not fair, but what if Louis Farrakhan gets up and makes a long hour speech today and says some of the strong things he said in the past? Will that spoil the whole day?
Nothing can spoil this day. I mean, nothing. If it poured down raining right now and the thing was over, it wouldn't spoil this day. If Farrakhan spoke for 2 weeks, it wouldn't spoil this day. If Clinton came out here and said it, nothing's going to spoil this day. It's already happened. The march was coming here, just being together. Let me tell you something real quick. My trip coming here, when I came to the airport in Los Angeles, the guy who picks up the bags, I tried to give him a tip, and he looked at my ticket and said, "You going to the Million Man March?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Keep the $2, brother." Then I go inside, and there was a sister that was to show you how women are supporting this, black women. The sister said, "I'm getting my boarding pass." She said, "Okay, but hold on, just wait a minute." And I'm like, okay. So I wait a minute. Next thing you know, people are boarding. She comes back by me and said, she never smiled, never did anything special. She said, "Can I have your ticket?" She went over and put it. She said, "You're going to the Million Man March, right? I upgraded you to first class." I mean, this is what's going on across this nation. I was at a nightclub 2 nights ago, and here in D.C., and a black man looked at me and he said, "You know what? I've been in nightclubs all over this country, and usually, like, people look at each other in the clubs and it's like, my territory and all this thing." He said, "Black people are smiling at each other all around this place." Right. So there's nothing anybody can do to spoil this, as hard as the press is going to try. Tomorrow morning, whatever negative is, like, if there's a dog around here that poo-poos on the ground, that's going to be the headlines. Whatever negative can be is going to be brought out about this. But there is nothing negative here.
Well, look, only thing I can say is if $2 for a tip after you spend maybe a couple $100s on a hotel, I've been thinking about this. Maybe if all these black men took that money back and gave it to some of the children that are out there who need things, we might be better off.
Well, we're going to be better off because these black men are going to go back and do something in the community to bring up the kids.
We will see.
That's the test.
We will see. But you know what? We can be doing that without Farrakhan's leadership. We can be doing that without a march under his banner. Okay, and you can be doing that in your church. I can be doing it in my, and we are doing it. We're working on these issues. So I don't need the leadership of Louis Farrakhan to help me do that.
I'm sorry for you, but we do.
Oh, you do? So it is an endorsement of Louis Farrakhan. Well, I'm glad you finally said that.
No, it's not. I didn't.
You said you need his leadership.
Donald Payne?
I said we need this.
Brother Wheeler, I've had this kind of debate for the last 2 or 3 weeks about people that got this fixation on Farrakhan.
That's it.
You know what? Farrakhan's been
what else negative
you know what?
Say?
When people have, I think it's just insecurity. I couldn't care if Farrakhan walked up and whatever he said or did. That's his thing. I am not responsible for the man who's older than I am. He can, I hope he does say all the right things. Yeah. But if he doesn't, as I indicated, and as you said, it's successful. I had the same experience. I was on a plane. I flew back to Washington Friday evening. Plane was full of black men, and on a Friday night, it was a Saturday evening flight, rather. The plane is generally empty. Come from Newark to Washington, 8 o'clock, nobody's here. You couldn't get a seat. And the fella that I went and got a Coke waiting for the plane, and the fella said, "You going to that thing?" He was cleaning up. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, man." He said, "You know what?" He said, "I just wish I could go." He said, "But remember me." He said, "I'll be there in spirit." It's probably more than this fella has said in 5 years to a customer. He was just sweeping up and cleaning around. He was proud. And like you said, the symbolism, the $2, that my reverend here kind of joked about, like they don't do collections in church. The fact is that it's the symbolism. As I indicated, I was out, as you probably were, several hours ago. Black men were walking, smiling, waving, fellas with their children. And if I'm just so happy that I feel a part of this movement, and I'm just so glad that I'm not here worrying about Farrakhan becoming a leader, really.
Well,
Jacob, let me ask you to look around. Tell us, where are you, and what do you see if you're standing where you are and instead of where we are? What's around you?
Well, I see a lot of black men standing up here, and I see their butts because they're looking that way. I can't see anything. They're blocking the view. I mean, the Capitol's here right behind me, and they're having a speaker and response.
How long what are you going to do for the whole day? I know this goes on until the very end of the day.
I honestly don't have a clue. I'm just going to be here and enjoy this atmosphere and keep this smile on my face.
What are you going to do tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'm going to go in the office and deal with Wall Street.
But what are you going to do? I mean, what do you want these men, your friends down there on the mall today, to do tomorrow to make this day worthwhile?
Carry this on. We have to start working now. We have to start doing this every day. We have to stop black-on-black crime. We've got to start being responsible for our families. We all need to go back and hug our black women, our mothers, our sisters, and let them, those that were not supportive of this, which is a very small minority, but we need to bring them in and embrace them. And those that have been supporting us for this, we need to just give them big kisses and hugs and cook dinner for them.
Stay where you are for a moment if you can. We'll take a telephone call from Indianapolis and see what someone far away from here has to say. Go ahead, Indianapolis. You're on the air.
Hello. This question is for Reverend Jackson. I would like to ask you why on national television would you, it's almost like the theory of, have you heard about divide and conquer?
Yeah.
When you sit on TV and you run down Farrakhan and the Million Man March is to bring together black men. It is not necessarily to follow Farrakhan. I do not personally believe in Farrakhan. I don't believe in him as a political leader. But any little bit that he says that is positive, you can take that away and use it. Now, I've studied history for the last 7 years of my life, United States, African American, Jewish. And a lot of the things that he says about the Jewish community are documented. Now, sure, saying the Jews are bloodsuckers is wrong, but they were the people who gave money to get together the slave ship companies to bring slaves to this country. And it's like, if he says something in that direction, it's true. It's in history. I have a research paper. If you ever want to see the bibliography, I can give it to you. But you have to realize that in order to keep the past from repeating itself, you must stop it. And if this march can wake up one black male to stop history from repeating itself, then so be it. But my question to you is this: why must you get on television and run down a fellow black male?
Indianapolis, stay on the line, if you would, please. Go ahead, Reverend Jackson.
First of all, I am not interested in unifying with anybody whose principles I don't believe in. I don't care what their color is, and I'm interested in unifying with anybody whose principles I do believe in. So this notion, don't criticize him, he's black, is a lot of nonsense. I mean, if a person is a mass murderer and he's black, should I not criticize him? Because after all, he's black. I mean, that's a lot of hogwash. But the point I want to make here is this. I was about to say, I'm glad everybody's disassociating themselves from Farrakhan. But here you see my point. The Jews are responsible for slavery. That's pseudo-history. Jews may have been part of the European community that was responsible for enslaving black people, but so were Arabs, so were Africans who participated in it. But, you know, this notion that, well, we have to hate them because, after all, they're responsible. That's a lot of nonsense and it's bad history.
Indianapolis, you want to follow up with this?
Yes. I was not stating that you should hate Jews. If I hated Jews, I never would have made Jewish history a part of my major in college. That was not my point. But my point is, realize that Jews did have something to do with that. It's like, and also, I'm not saying just support Farrakhan because he is a black man. I'm only saying if he says something positive that is going to uplift one black person and make their attitude change towards something like how they treat their family and whether they're going to bring their paycheck home and pay the bills and help their wife, I'm like, that more power to him.
All right, Indianapolis, thank you.
Well, I talk about all of that without the hatred. But if what I'm supposed to do is support somebody because they're 99% wrong and 1% right, I should support them because, after all, they may say 1% of what is right. No way.
Jacob Wheeler, do you have a comment?
There's more than 1% that he says that's right. Come on, be real.
Donald Payne?
Absolutely. When he talks about ridding our communities from the drug dealers, when he talks about black men being responsible for their spouses, for to matrimony, to bring up the family as it ought to be, when he talks about black on black crime, that 1 in 3 African American men between the ages of 20 and 29 are either in probation, parole, and where it was 1 in 4 just 2 or 3 years ago. He's talked about a whole lot of things. I think that Reverend Jackson has it skewed and mixed up. It's not 99% right and 1% wrong. Much of what he's saying,
I said 99% wrong.
Right, I know. And that's what I'm saying, that you're 99% wrong. I agree with you.
Jacob Wheeler, how are you as a black man treated in the financial community?
Well, for example, there are 37 brokers in my office, and I'm the only African American there. And after the Simpson trial, we had some serious conversations. I'd say over half the group is Jewish, and we had some very interesting conversations. But the only thing negative that ever comes out of any conversations is the only two things that can come out: the exclusion of women and Farrakhan. That's it. And as soon as you look beyond, and what I always try to tell people is that no matter what you want to think of the man and what he says, he is a very eloquent speaker, and there is quite a bit of what he says that is based on fact. He chooses his words well, and he has his own reality that he has to deal with, but that he says what he says for a reason, and the way he says it for a reason. He could say all of the things that he says in very simple terms that we all know, like the history statements that the lady was making about history. I mean, he could make those statements, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to say it in his own terms. And so that's his reality, and that's his choice.
Well, not to suggest Farrakhan has done as much evil as Hitler, but Hitler was an eloquent speaker. I mean, the fact that somebody is an eloquent speaker doesn't mean anything. It doesn't prove anything. The question is, what is the person saying? And I have to say this. In my view, I know callers say, how can I sit on national TV? Let me say this to every Christian who is listening. In my view, no Christian ought to be involved in anything that has anything to do with Farrakhan, and yet and 3 major denominations disassociated themselves from it, saying they will not march under a banner that is contrary to Jesus Christ. Well, even if you get 1 million, you've only gotten 1 out of every 10. Even if you get that's 3 major denominations. The largest one in the country, the National Baptist Convention, USA. The president said, look, and there are a whole lot who didn't come.
But look how many are here.
There are a whole lot who didn't come.
Reverend,
and I hope they didn't come for the right reasons, too.
Reverend, come on now. You started out real strong, and I went along with it. But now you're talking about if it's only 1 in 10, probably the only place in the world.
If they get 1 million, I don't think they're going to get that.
Probably not. It's a goal. You know, we're striving towards a more perfect union in this country. We're not there yet. 1 million person, pretty catchy. 1 million man march. If we get 1 million, absolutely. So I just simply say that, to say that if only 1 in 10 came, it's a failure. I mean, I can't believe, like I said, Minister Farrakhan says things that I totally disagree with. And I make that very clear. Well, that's been clear right along. I also made the point very clearly that this thing is far beyond Minister Farrakhan. He just happened to come up with the notion. In my district from New Jersey, practically every bus that's coming is coming from a Baptist church or an AME church. That's the only people that have buses coming. And so it's not sad. It's the church deciding not to sit in a lofty place and talk a lot of rhetoric, but getting out into the community and saying, here is a bus, come on, let's go down, let's be renewed, let's come back with something positive. So forget what the people of the head of the National Baptist said. I'm a Baptist, I'm a good Baptist. I go to church, I believe in God.
Jacob Wheeler, you want to jump in here?
I'm not a Baptist, I'm a Christian.
Jacob Wheeler?
I'm a Baptist.
I mean, if you just take the camera and look around at some of the faces here, you're going to know that this is a success. And Farrakhan hasn't even come out. No one has seen him yet. This is a success. You hear this? Farrakhan isn't speaking. You don't hear a lot of negativity going on here. This is positive. This is beautiful.
I'd like to ask our producer if we could get our camera folks over on the grounds to get some very close-up shots of some of the men in the audience there, if we could, so that we can see some of these faces. We were looking at them earlier. As we look at some of the faces in the crowd, and we've got another picture that we'll show you soon on the screen. There was a lot more sun coming up. I know that Jacob Wheeler can't see these faces, but he's right there. What do you all see in these faces?
Well, I don't have any doubt that the people who are there have come there with the best of intentions, with the best of desires. But, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, Brian. I'll tell you one thing. If you follow Farrakhan, you will. That's where you'll end up.
Well, then I can tell you one thing for sure. We're not going to hell.
Well, good.
Let me ask Jacob Wheeler one last question. We'll let you go. You've been very patient. So far in this experience, what's been the most interesting thing?
The smiles on people's faces to see black men doing good, positive things here together like this. This is great, man. I'll tell you what, another experience that happened. I got in the elevator, and a white guy got on the elevator with me in the hotel, and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I said, so you're here for the march? And he had nothing else to say but, can I come? I said, of course you can come. And if you look around, you're going to see more than just black men here. You're going to see women, children, and all ethnicities. Not in abundant numbers, but they're here. People are here. This is fabulous.
Jacob Wheeler, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian Lamb. Reverend Earl Jackson, I hope you find yourself. And Congressman Donald Payne.
I hope you find Christ. I found him. That's who I want to find.
I have found him.
Yeah, well, good.
I found him.
You won't find him with Farrakhan. You stick with Farrakhan, I'll stick with the Lord. Well, but don't tell me I need to find myself.
I am definitely with the Lord.
You remember what the Bible says? Wide is the gate that leads to destruction, and many there be that go in there at. Wide is the gate. So don't tell me, because if you got a million men there, don't tell me that by that means something is wrong with me. No, thank you.
No, I don't mean anything wrong with you.
I know where I'm going.
I just want you to do something good. Say some good things.
Listen, I'm doing something good, but I'm not going to say anything good about what Farrakhan is leading. I'm not going to say anything good.
About all these black faces down here smiling.
I've already said that. I'm sure they have the best of intentions.
Right. Jacob Wheeler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Payne.
Let me thank you too, Will. You're right on time. Beautiful.
Congressman Payne, what is your plan for the rest of the day? What are you going to do?
Well, I will be talking at different networks. I'll be meeting with Mrs. Parks and Mrs. King and Mrs. Angelo. The Congressional Black Caucus members will be coming out and interspersing with the crowd. I will be on the lawn for the entire day. Like I said, it's really a great coming together. It's just like Christian soldiers marching on to victory. Like I said, I think that it's just going to be a real happening, and I think it's going to show men. Like I said, at 5 and 6 in the morning, see men walking to try to get to the mall. Really sends out a very positive message. Shows that if you think about it, you can do it. And even the fact that women, it was called for men, because I've often said, if you just said, let's have a 1 million person march, as it's been in the past, you'd probably have, if it were white, black, Chinese, you'd have 800,000 women and a couple of 100,000 men. And so I think the specific purpose to challenge men that this time you can't hide behind the women who've been doing most of the work. You have to come out yourself. And for them to find Angela Davis, I didn't even know she was still around, to come out with this very strong argument against the fact that women were excluded. To me, they're looking for the division. I think it's as Brother Wheeler said, it's very successful.
I want to take one call, and then I want to look around in the crowd, and if they're still playing the music, we'll listen to a little bit of that. Go to New Orleans next. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I really want to make the comment that people should really back off Minister Farrakhan. The reason why people, like the good Reverend up there, express that type of pessimism, envy is at the root of it. Minister Farrakhan has vision, and as the scripture teaches, where there is no vision, the people perish. Minister Farrakhan has responded to the needs of black men because he loves us as a people, me speaking as a black woman, and has dedicated over 40 years of his life to lifting up the black race. Now,
Well,
as far as women not coming to the march, I totally agree with that, because I know being in a group of black people with black men and black women, we are attracted to one another. There's a lot of, there'll be a lot of talking and everything going on. And like the 63 march, there were more women and children that attended the march than men. So this is a significant way for black men to come together. And the reason why Minister Farrakhan had the vision of this march is because the way that the media has portrayed the black man, on television, here in the United States and around the world. And
Caller, let me interrupt to ask you. I've got a picture here from today's Washington Times. Can you see the network where you are?
Yes.
All right, if you look on the screen, you'll see it, and I'll explain to you what it is. It's Ellen Fleming washes the feet of Tarek Gaintuck yesterday at the Marcus Garvey Academy of Arts and Sciences in Northeast. The pre-Million Man March ceremony was held to symbolize humility and unity. Can you explain what this is about?
Well, I really can't explain why the sister exactly is washing the brother's feet, but as far as the humility end of it, there are a lot of things that the black woman can also be doing, to further her role in the black community. I'd wash my brother's foot also. I mean, I have no problem with that. I don't think it's to degrade the sister or anything like that. That's something that she obviously wanted to do.
All right, thanks.
My comment is for Mr. Earl Jackson. There's a Christopher Darden in every crowd. He needs to leave because he's making something positive appear to be very negative. My second comment is for the sisters. Sisters, don't be angry. Let the brothers do something positive for themselves because they're angry and they really need something that will build their spirits so they can come back to our communities. We're losing our black teenagers, and this is something that our young black men can see, our black men doing something positive. This is going to only build their ego. And it's not a Farrakhan thing. This is a black thing. So Mr. Earl Jackson, he needs to get up and leave because we don't need the negativity.
Caller, Caller, are you still there? Hello, Orlando. Let's go to Fort Hood, Texas next. Go ahead, please. You're on the air, Fort Hood, Texas. Hello, Fort Hood, Texas.
How you doing?
Hi. What's on your mind this morning?
All right. I was wanting to talk about what Reverend Jackson was talking about a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. His statement about Farrakhan and everybody that's around there joining up. You see, I just have one statement. I think it's good to have all them people in that area doing that thing for some kind of cause instead of, like when I walk out my front door, I see drug dealers and I see black men with guns in their hands.
That's right.
I say, if he has something against Farrakhan, that's fine. But it's better to have all them black people around for a cause instead of like they is in front of my front door.
Caller, why did you not come to the march today?
Oh, I'm in the Army. I'm in Fort Hood, Texas. I can't just take off work like that and go somewhere.
Are some of your colleagues or all your colleagues talking about this march today?
Yes, sir. We've been having discussions last night about it, and I didn't hear about it till about 3 days ago. A friend of mine told me.
Okay, thanks. Jacksonville, Florida, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm addressing the fact that Senator Payne, Senator Payne is doing a real good job standing up, putting his career and everything on the line. I believe he's a good man, and he's saying a lot of positive. But for the Reverend Jackson, I would like to ask a question on why isn't, what has he done to help rid drugs from the projects and stuff like that in poor areas in Boston area?
Well, my work is primarily in my church, and we have a very large group of young people in the church who we work with all the time about staying out of drugs, staying out of gangs, staying away from guns and violence. And yeah, I've spent a lot of time on the streets. Don't spend as much time on the streets as I used to, but spend a lot of time on the streets talking to young people, approaching them in parks, talking to them at basketball courts. I've had many, many, many marches in the Boston community. So, I don't even need to defend myself in that way. All I can say is I'm very, very thankful to God for having given me the opportunity and continuing to give me the opportunity to serve my community. And I can do that, and I'm going to continue to stand apart from Farrakhan.
We have over on the mall Clifton Davis, who is an actor, and he's here attending this mall rally today. What's the reason that you came, Mr. Davis?
Well, I came because I'm a father. I came because I remember 1963 and the unity that we showed as a people in America. I came because I'm not so much afraid these days of the KKK, Ku Klux Klan, but in the words of Dolores Tucker, I'm afraid and concerned about KKK kids killing kids. My son is 15 years old in America today, and it's important for me that he understand that not only that we love one another, but that we appear and are indeed a people who are unified to solve the problems of the African American community. If we don't act to help ourselves, we're doomed. And so that's why I'm here, because I believe in the principle. I may not agree totally with the ideas and the ministry of Minister Farrakhan, but I certainly believe in African American people in unity. And that's why I'm here, because God taught me to love not just my brothers, whom all of these people are, but as a Christian, it's important for me to love my enemies as well. I think unity is really important today.
When did you decide to come to this march?
Well, I decided when Dr. Chavis, who's a friend of mine, first let me know that he was director. And then, of course, when I noted that Dorothy Height endorsed the march, various other friends and ideally thinking people that I know, Maya Angelou and others, supported the march, I felt it was important for me to be a part of it too.
Where is your hometown originally?
I've come in from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. My original hometown is Patchogue, Long Island, New York.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Pine Forge Academy in Pennsylvania, which is a Seventh-day Adventist Christian academy. And there we learned what it is to share the plight of our brothers. That's why we're here today, to say we're going to make a difference in our communities. We're going to stand together to fight the problems, the gang violence, the drugs, the teen pregnancy, the school dropouts, the cutbacks in affirmative action. All of these things are important for us to address as a people. And when we address them in a unified group, numbers like this, we've got to be heard.
What have you acted in that that the audience could have seen?
They may have seen me as Reverend Reuben Gregory on Amen for 5 years on NBC, or on That's My Mama some years before that on ABC. They may see me as a host of many, many award shows or telethons. I'm concerned about education in America. In fact, there are 2 busloads from Elizabeth City State University here today, where I'm serving as Vice Chancellor for Development and Planning. And I decided I was going to get down into the grassroots of historically black colleges and universities' education on a grassroots level to try to make a difference. So I kind of put my career on hold for a year or 2 so that I could make a difference with my people. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Clifton Davis, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate you dropping by, and it sounds like it's noisy and busy out there and hard to hear. San Diego, next. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
To each and every one of you. And my name is Janet Maxwell, and I'm calling from San Diego, California. And my message is for Reverend Jackson. I've always noticed, and I work in the church. I have a son who's 35, who's a single parent, who's very discouraged, overworked, underpaid. And he has no self-esteem because he has nothing positive. We have more churches in our black community. We have more crime. We have more depression, more suicides. What I would like to know from you is, if you think this idea is so bad, why didn't all the black ministers come together and think about it?
I never said it. I thought the idea was bad. But what I've said is I'm not going to march under, and I don't think Christians should march under the banner of Farrakhan. Look, I understand, though, the problem that your son is confronting. I deal with people who are facing those kinds of problems all the time, and I suggest this to you. You know, a lot of our people are no longer in the church. And churches in Boston, I know it's happening across the country, are doing all kinds of outreach. everything they know how to. Most are to reach out, and people don't want to come. They don't want to be bothered. We've outgrown the church. So you want to put the responsibility on the church, and maybe some of it should fall there. But I put the responsibility also on black people who have forgotten the bridge that brought us over.
Final comment?
I just think that one of the salvations is the church. It was the church that brought us through the days of the Underground Railroad when Harriet Tubman led slaves to freedom. It was the church that talked about teaching people to read when slaves could not learn to read and it was against the law. It was the church that really brought us to where we are today. And I hope that this march will kind of spur the church to rededicate themselves. Some may be doing the job, but we have to get out of the church and do like Jesus did and walk among the people and try to turn some of these negative things around. I think this is positive. There's too much killing in our community. There's too much drugs in our community. There's too much depression in our community. And so this, I hope, is a step in the right direction for African Americans, but it will be a step in the right direction for all Americans. And I wish that all of our African Americans and white America would look at this in a positive sense to see that this is something that we're doing to better the quality of life for all people in this great nation.
Donald Payne, chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Reverend Earl Jackson, radio talk show host. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
For helping us better understand where everybody comes down on this issue. Well, let's go to the rally. And we have a young man that we've asked to put on the microphone and a headset who is here as a part of this march. His name is Larry Shingler, and he's 12 years old, and he's from Fort Myer, Virginia. Mr. Shingler, why did you come to this march today?
Because I would like to be out here to make this part of history with all the black community.
Where do you go to school?
Oxon Hill Middle.
How big is your school?
It's pretty big. It has a cafeteria, gym, and 2 floors.
Any of the other fellow students here marching with you?
Well, I don't know, but most of my class said they'll come.
What's the purpose of this march, in your opinion?
For all the black people, or different races, to come here in the march for this piece of history.
And why is this important to you?
Because I just want to attend a piece of history so I can tell my next generation and my next generation about this.
Is your dad here today?
Yes.
What's your dad do for a living?
He works in the Army.
What do you want to do when you graduate from school?
Well, I want to be a professional football player.
How come?
Because I like the sport.
And what are you looking forward to today? Is there any particular speaker that you want to hear?
Not really. I just want to attend this march.
Are you having a good time?
Yes.
What's the best part of it so far?
Just listening to the people talk and seeing everybody around here.
What's the mixture in your school of black and white kids?
Well, we have a lot of blacks and whites, and we have a very few Filipinos.
Do you all get along?
Yes.
Do you ever talk about race among your fellow students?
No.
Do you ever get any sense that there's a problem because you're a black person and the other person's a white or a Filipino?
No, because we just get along well, and we do what we're supposed to do.
What's your favorite subject in school?
Well, my favorite subject is math.
Are you pretty good at it?
Yes.
What kind of grades do you get?
A's.
All A's?
Yes.
Larry Shingler, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Larry Shingler at Fort Myer, Virginia, 12 years old, joining us from the mall. And we have a call standing by from Washington, D.C. Go ahead, Washington.
I would like to say good morning to everyone. My name is Lisa Smith, and I have a few comments. And the Reverend is really unnerving me because all he can focus on is negativity that's come out of the Nation of Islam. I would like to know, what has the Baptist Church, your church in particular, done for the community in about economic development? Have you built any churches? I mean, have you built any stores? Do you Any bakeries. These are the things that come out of the Nation of Islam. They have communities where they've built schools, they've built stores, they have bakeries, they have restaurants. We need that in our communities also. The one thing that bothers me about the church is that if you don't come inside, it's like you don't get help. They help their members, their members stand behind them, but what about everyone else? The nation wants to include everyone, and you don't have to follow them. You don't have to follow the minister, but you take the positiveness in his message and you use that in your betterment. You don't sit there and judge a person, because if you look in your own Bible, you know what the Lord says about judging people. And I don't see how you can sit there and put this march down, because this is the best thing that has ever happened to the black man in America, and that's just to show unity. If anything, if nothing else positive comes out of this, just that they came together, they came from all over this country, they came from other countries. That should be what the focus of the day is.
All right,
the reason
Washington,
that they're here.
Thank you very much. And as you see on your screen there's that big, looks like a big aluminum square there in the middle. That is what's called a jumbotron, and there are about 5 or 6 of those on the mall, so that if you look down to the left, you can see them off there in the background. And that's what folks who cannot see the speaker, obviously, way down, are going to be watching their television screens. And every so often are huge clusters of speakers, about 8 in a cluster, and there are at least 10 of those that go all the way across 17th Street, which is on the other side of the Washington Monument, and that's where the Lincoln Memorial is, so people can hear all the way down the mall. We have some faxes we want you to hear about. My comment is towards Uncle Tom Jackson. He sits there in that chair as if he is high and mighty, but in fact he looks jealous because he knows that he couldn't do what Farrakhan has done. If he disagrees with Farrakhan in the march, then that's fine. However, do not tear down something positive for fellow black Americans. If he has nothing to say, then he should shut the hell up. And this is a comment from Janice Jones, and don't know where the facts came from. Here's another one. Dear C-SPAN, I am scared. I listened and watched last night to speakers on C-SPAN, and speaker after speaker promoted the blood, I can't read that, blood flowing, I guess, of whites. The whites' demise, the taking of America from the whites by the blacks. I'm scared to death, and I will stay away from blacks. I will avoid all blacks if possible. I cannot vote for Colin Powell now forever, since I have really seen the hate. I am scared. That's Marianne Whittington, I believe, and she lives in the 612 area code. Here's another fax from Huntington, West Virginia. I am a white man. I am a white mainstream male, and I just wanted to say how much I admire you and what you say. This is to the Reverend Earl Jackson. Does Mr. Payne know that the liberals have failed the very people he claims to want to help? How sad. The blacks vote with the Democrats over 90%. What have they done but keep you dependent and down? When will you see? Next call we go to is from Stamford, Connecticut. Go ahead, Stamford. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning. It is my perception that the two commentators are missing the major point. What's at issue here is not Farrakhan's presence or involvement in the march, but what can come out of this. I believe that what made the 63 march so successful and stand out in everyone's mind is that so many things emanated from it. And the reason that those things emanated from it was because there were mechanisms in place that could help to implement the things that were on the agenda that were being sought. Earlier, one of the commentators talked about the difference in the number of elected black officials in the nation. That's a direct outcome of some of the mechanisms that were put into place by the various organizations which participated in and supported the 63 March. There's a lot of talk about family values and the need for them, and both politicians as well as the commentators that you have on seem to be missing the boat. Those morals, those values can only be implemented through family and or community. Here you got a situation where there's a need for those values to be implemented with the mechanisms for implementing them breaking down. If families are no longer in a position, especially those headed by single heads of household or where both parents have to work, who is going to be responsible for the implementing of those values or the conditioning of those values? If the churches are losing membership, as the Reverend mentioned, who is going to be implementing those values? It's easy to stand and talk about values, but if there's no mechanism for implementing them, that should be a focus. And I don't hear that being addressed.
Stanford, Connecticut, thanks for calling. Some more faxes. I am an 18-year-old black woman. I do not support the Nation of Islam, but I do support the Million Man March. I believe Farrakhan is the best person to lead this march because he is one of the few people who doesn't worry about stepping on anyone's toes. What needs to be said to the black man will be said without fear of offending. Many of these men need to be told the truth, even if it hurts. We're watching the crowd assemble in front of the west front of the Capitol. The actual start time for the march or the rally is at 11 o'clock this morning. And we go next on the phones to Atlanta. Atlanta, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes. First of all, my name is Martin Pitts. I'm calling in. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it because I missed my flight. But the comment that I would like to make is that if the Reverend Jackson, who was there previously, doesn't see positivity out of a million black men marching together, then he really needs some vision. Second of all, the letter which came in from the white person making a comment that he was afraid because of a million black men getting together, that's exactly what we need. We need to be reconciled with, because we're not viewed as a power in America, and that's exactly what this march is about, is to be viewed and reconciled with, and to let America know that we stand strong and we stand together, not as you see every day, separatism. That's not what this is about. This is about to bring power, to bring unity, and to bring love. And if, regardless of whether you have a animosity towards Farrakhan and his views, if you don't see positiveness out of black men, as you see right now, waving their hands in unity and love and showing respect for one another, then you know people really have a problem, and they really need to view this from another perception.
What do you do for a living in Atlanta?
I'm sorry?
What do you do for a living in Atlanta?
I'm attending school. My major is electrical engineering and mathematics.
Where do you go to school?
I go to Clark Lance University, and I attend a dual degree program at Georgia Tech.
Did you have a lot of friends that did make it to the rally?
Yes, I do. I have a tremendous amount of friends which made it to this rally. As a matter of fact, hopefully I have 1 million black men who are my friends who made it to this rally. And I hope that it turns out to be very successful, despite the negativity coming from media.
All right, Atlanta, thank you. Here's another fax. This is from Lincoln Bradley, and it's forget Farrakhan. There is nothing wrong with black men coming together to get closer to God and to themselves. This is the message of the march. And standing by again on the mall is Michelle Harvey and her two sons, Michael and Dion. Why are you attending the march?
I'm attending the march. I brought my two sons, Michael and Dion. I thought it was important for them to be here to see all these black men come together.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
Now, we have been hearing that this is only for men. How come you decided to come?
I had to bring my children with me, and it means something to me, too. It's about time that they came together.
How old are your boys?
3 and 14.
And what do they think about all this?
I think that they kind of confused. I don't know.
You think they might not quite understand what this is all about, or do they?
A little. That's why I brought them here to teach them what it's all about.
What have you told them so far? What's the reason for all those folks on the mall?
The reason is for a lot of black people to come together and to be positive in the things that they do. My son, mainly my 13-year-old son, he's always in trouble, and I think it's about time that he come and realize what this is about. It's a lot.
Is their father there today?
No, but he's coming. He might be here already, but we left before them.
And what do you do for a living?
I work in our College Park at University of Maryland.
And did you get off today? Was there any problem with getting off?
No,
Was there any problem getting down here today?
no, but the train was a little crowded.
How do you like the crowd so far?
I love it.
Michelle Harvey, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Here's another fax. On behalf of all the Arab people, we support our African brothers of all religious backgrounds on this special, awesome day. We're watching you on TV, and our hearts are dancing with cheer and support. Mrs. Bushra Najjar, and it's from somewhere, I can't tell, here in Virginia. Next call from Huntsville, Alabama. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Angela Brown from Huntsville, Alabama, and I'm calling for the Reverend Earl Jackson. I cannot believe you listening to you talk like this. You keep putting down Minister Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan is this. He is not the only speaker at the march. Why aren't you putting the other speakers down? Obviously, you're jealous of him. You may say you're not, but you are. The focus of this march is for atonement. This march is way beyond Minister Farrakhan, and you fail to see that. And you say that God did not tell you about the march. Just listen to yourself. Listen to how you speak. Why would he tell you about the march?
Thanks, Huntsville. A fax here from David Houston of Escondido, California. 1 million men will march to or on Washington, D.C. Interesting. Where do 1 million people get the time and resources to travel across the country on a Monday, a work day, to protest in a place that makes a practice of taking money from those who have earned it to give it to those who have not? Oh, silly me. The money. Follow the money. How much more could be accomplished if all this energy was directed toward fixing, cleaning, and painting in their own backyard and maybe getting a job? Sorry how politically incorrect of myself. Shame on me for thinking a person should be responsible. Next call, San Francisco. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to make my comment about some of the gentlemen that you were talking about, the reverend from the church, and I hope that they can put the idea of being Christian or Muslim aside. I am originally American Egyptian, and I am white, but I believe that what they are doing over here as finally someone is trying to put people together to have a unity, to have something to look forward to it. Instead of having fight with each other, they should direct their energy to get the life for the black community, especially in the area of San Francisco where I have seen so many black people on the streets. They need somebody to lift them up, to get them together so they can have something to look forward to have a family, to have a life to look forward to it, and instead of having difficulty growing up in the community here in San Francisco.
All right, sir, thank you. Another fax here. This one, it's not signed, and it says, did you hear that guy at 7:40 a.m., Earl Jackson? You who worship at the temple of Rush Limbaugh, did that man have Limbaugh figured precisely, Earl, and in a way you never figured him? Guys like you are such phonies about this. Why should anyone believe in you when, in fact, you are a ditto head and have been since your days here in Boston a couple of years ago when you were taking your cues from Limbaugh every day? Do you phony conservatives understand how transparent you really are and how contradictory? And do you still blame the liberals 25 times an hour, Earl, for every 111 of mankind? And you are not a scapegoater, right? No, this is a fax and it's not signed. We go to Chicago, Illinois. Next. Go ahead, please.
How you doing?
Good.
The only comment I wanted to make is I think that it's good to be pro-black. It's good that they get together and unify the community. But the thing is, I think it's a step backwards because 30 years ago, you have a man like Martin Luther King, full of character, that's leading this march. And look where we are. 30 years later, you have a man like Farrakhan leading it. And I think that's an important fact. People keep saying, well, that doesn't matter. Well, of course it matters. Who's leading the march? Of course that matters. I mean, if you had a racist like Mark Furman leading a march for whites, I don't think anybody would go to the march.
All right. Thank you, caller. Washington, D.C., you're next. Go ahead, please.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say that regardless of any of the dissent that you may be receiving that there are at least 5 women here sitting in support of this Million Man March, black women, and that is 500%, 100% per person here in support. We're sitting here crowded around the TV with chills, not because it's a little cold outside, but because we understand what this march represents. And I wanted to make a comment that we all are sitting here watching, and we're looking at the interviews that you're giving to the people, and we think that it's very inappropriate for you to ask what each person does for a living. I think that the most important thing that they have done for a living is be black, and that's kind of more important than any job that they may be unemployed in. And the young black male that you asked a moment, the 12-year-old, you asked him what his father did for a living and about what school he was attending and what was the black to white ratio there and did they get along. I think that you can't ask a 12-year-old questions like that and expect them to be relevant at such an age. When we were 12 years old, of course we got along because we followed instructions and we did what we were told to do. So you can't ask a 12-year-old, does he get along with his fellow classmates that are black or white, and expect an answer contrary to the one that he gave. One of the reasons that we are here for this march in the beginning is to get rid of that capitalistic mentality that this society has placed on black people in the beginning, the one that asks, what do you do for a living? That's one of the reasons that that the black men are marching today, and one of the reasons that we 5 are sitting here in 500% support, because we love all of our black men. And we just want them to know, and everybody else that's watching, that we're here and we love them, and it's just indescribable.
Thank you very much. Next call, we go to Monterey, California. You're on the air. Go ahead, please. Monterey, California, you're on the air.
Oh.
Please speak up, Monterey. You're on the air.
Okay. My comment was about the Reverend Jackson. My name is Artis Wallace, and I thought that Reverend Jackson was quite off base. For one, he said he was a Christian, and one of the models of being a Christian, obviously, is to forgive and turn the other cheek. This gentleman is not doing that at all. He takes the comments from, Mr. Farrakhan, and he doesn't actually say anything except he's saying bad things. Okay, everyone understands that he did say a couple of bad things, but you have almost 1 million people that have never come together ever. We've got so many problems in the black community, and people are not doing enough. And he says a couple of bad things, and now he's all over TV. I'd like to ask you, would you have thought this could ever have happened?
All right, caller, thank you. We'll let you ask the questions and leave the answers to those that have been watching this to decide for themselves. This is a fax from Elizabeth, I believe it's, I can't be sure. It looks like Fern of Tampa, Florida. And it says, C-SPAN, I bet you don't read it. To the blacks in Washington, congratulations. Wish I were there. Farrakhan is not any worse than Newt Gingrich, Jesse Helms, and Rush. They, in fact, are the biggest hate mongers among us. Jesse Helms should be impeached for something the military on our president. Gingrich is a coward who attacks women, children, elderly with cuts, and fixes for the wealthy. The critics love these people. Give me a break. You are either not thinking or hypocritical. Thanks. And next call, by the way, those of you interested, the president's speech today in Texas will be on C-SPAN 2, and live coverage, I think, is expected to start around 10 o'clock this morning. That's the president's speech in Texas. Will be live on C-SPAN 2 for those of you around the country that can get it. We'll have a guest shortly from the mall. You can see there, those are where the vendors are set up. It cost them $1,000 for a permit if you wanted to sell items at this event. And those tent-like affairs are set up all down Constitution Avenue, Independence Avenue, all the way back to 17th Street, and also inside in the mall area. as we take this next call from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes, good morning.
Hi.
My name is Delisa. I am a resident now of North Carolina. I've recently been here for 2 months, and I've been following this Million Man March. But I do have a comment. I am a Muslim, not a follower of Louis Farrakhan, but I am a believer of Elijah Muhammad. My background, coming from a very strong Baptist, traditional Baptist home in Kentucky, my mother is she is very active in the church, but a comment to Reverend Jackson. I understand. I hear what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. But as being a Christian, I didn't feel that I had to get up Sunday morning and go to church in order to believe that God was that I was a follower of God. Reverend Jackson, to me, is I don't understand why he doesn't. He isn't in favor of the march, being the black man that he proclaims that he is on national TV. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a Muslim. All it takes is, in the understanding of it that I'm getting from it, is to be a black man, and you have to look at your past and pretty much understand of what you've been through in the past and where you're trying to get through in the future. I do work for a living. I don't work for my health. I work in order to get ahead. And there is a lot of racism out here. Since I've been in Fayetteville, I have been faced with a lot of racism, but I don't let it bother me because I know that there are people out here, that there are individuals and companies, I'm in the medical field, who don't look at me as an individual, who looks at me because I am a smart black woman, an individual who knows exactly what she is supposed to know in order to succeed in the field that she's chosen. But Reverend Jackson needs to open his Bible and read and understand and look within himself, and maybe he will get the understanding and the outlook of what this march actually is.
All right. Thank you for your call, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Here's another fax. This one's from Fred in New York. After seeing the pep rally that was carried on C-SPAN last night, I can see why racism is growing in America. And here's another fax. Please get the Reverend Jackson off this show. Reverend Jackson is gone, by the way, because he is obstructing unity. He can't see, I guess it says, past his collection plate. I asked him what has he done for the unity of the black nation, not just Boston. This thing is much bigger than him. He is jealous. Not once has he talked about any place outside Boston. Reverend Jackson, you are out of touch. Reverend Earl Jackson, who was our guest earlier, I've tried to talk to you. Your attitude is the reason I left the church. Can't you see that this could be and is a vehicle to Christ? Christianity is supposed to teach unity. It appears that all you are doing is affirming the collections and tithes are all you are looking for in the church. What did Christ say about this? Have you started an economic development program? How can you judge? Jesus Christ is the final judge. Don't give the media another vehicle to divide and conquer. If you say that you truly believe in God, then go out to the masses and try to save souls. Maybe you can save Minister Farrakhan. I served this country for over 20 years in the Army so that we all could have the rights in this country that you espouse, and I am disappointed in you. Go out to the march and save souls. Do this for me as a Christian since I can't be there. Bill Coleman, U.S. Army, retired. We have a call, and then we're going to talk to a guest. College Park, Maryland, you're next. What's on your mind?
Hi, my name is Lachelle from College Park, and I was calling because I'm in great support of this march and everything, and it's sad to see that I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist, and it's sad to see that a lot of Baptist people aren't supporting the march. I mean, because the person that was talking about Christianity is supposed to teach unity. He's right. It's supposed to teach unity. It's like for all black men to gather together, and it's nice to see that they can gather in peace. People shouldn't think of this as a Farrakhan thing, because it's not. It's a black unity thing. That's all it's about. You know, for people to gather for a day of atonement, to just be peaceful with one another. It shouldn't be about anything else. It's not an Islam thing. It's not a Farrakhan thing. It's not a Marion Barry thing. It's a black thing. It's for black men, for black people.
All right, College Park, thank you very much. We will be here all day long until the last speaker speaks, and the official program is not to get underway until 11 o'clock. Darrell Brown of the University of Southern Florida at Tampa is standing over in the mall. He's got a big banner behind him. Mr. Brown, what's that behind you?
Well, that's our banner at the University of South Florida, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. We drove all the way here from Tampa to represent Tampa here at the Million Man March. I'm enjoying myself here. It's It's an immense pleasure to be around so many positive people.
What do you do in Tampa? Are you a student?
Yes, I'm a student. I'm a business student. I'll be graduating in December with a degree in marketing.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Tampa.
And well, first of all, how did you get here?
We drove, actually.
In a car or bus?
No, we actually rented a van and we drove.
What do you think so far?
I'm happy. I think it's over 1 million people here, 1 million black men here. So I'm extremely happy to see so many people gathered here for such a momentous occasion and one that's positive. Oftentimes, the black man is pitted in a negative light. But as you see, no one's here doing anything that's negative. Everybody's here just having a good time and glorifying each other.
Now, what do you want to happen tomorrow after this is all over?
Well, I want for everybody to go back to their individual community and do the best to support that community.
What do you think of the coverage of this by the mainstream media so far?
Well, I think the coverage has been mixed. There has been some positive coverage and there's been some negative coverage. I know in Tampa, Florida, I've looked at the news, I've looked at the coverage, and it seems to be in some people's mind when a group of black men get together or black people get together, it seems that they think being pro-black is being negative white, which that's totally absurd. Anyone can love themselves. If I love myself, does that mean that I hate someone else? That's absurd.
Is your fraternity all black?
Yes, it is. We do have white members, though.
You do?
Yes.
I mean, so there's no restriction on a white person belonging to the fraternity?
No, as long as they meet the criteria of the fraternity, no.
What about the white majority fraternities on the campus? Do they have black folks in them?
Yes, some of them do.
And what do you think the nation is headed for? Is it headed toward more separatism or more integration?
Integration, I would say.
Are you in favor of that?
Of course.
What do you want to happen between now and the end of the day as you stand down there on the mall?
Well, I just want everybody to keep continuing to spread love around for us to come together in union.
Is there any one speaker you're looking forward to hearing?
Everybody. I'm pleased to hear everybody here.
Darrell Brown, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
As of 10 o'clock this morning, we reach 1 million black men. That means, as of 10 o'clock this morning, 1 million black women knew where their husbands was. Why are we here today? We're here today because we are in pain. And we come to share our pain and drop our pain. They tell us about jail, but what few of us know that over 30% of those in jail on probation are black men, 5% black women, 7% white men, 1% white women. Homicide, every 100,000, 72% homicide black men, 14% homicide black women, 9% homicide white men, 3% homicide white women. Unemployment, black men 12%, black women 11%, white men 5%, white women 5%. It's about our pain. And so I say to you today, as we go back home, the difference between this march in 95 and when we came in 63, we were dealing with a physical problem. We were dealing with signs that say we can't do this. We destroyed those signs thanks to the civil rights movement. And now we're dealing with a mental problem and an economic problem. And I say we leave here with a changed mindset. And that mindset has to be about love. We have gone from prime time, no more crime time. This is prime time. I love you. God bless you. Go back home and take care of the family, your family, our family, God's family. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Baba Dick Gregory.
It's he that has called this rising into being.
All right, well, African Americans are not the only ones who are watching this event. They may be the primary group that is represented here today, but they're not the only ones watching. What is it that you want to see white America take away from the message today?
Well, I think white Americans should look at this massive demonstration of black self-determination and with interest. When we improve our quality of life, it helps them to improve their quality of life. And I think what white Americans have not understood, that if you hold black people down, you ultimately hold yourself down. And this country is in terrible trouble. We got the stage of the Million Man March here on the Capitol of the United States. This contract with America is wrong. It's going in the wrong direction. America is going straight to hell. This country needs to be called into repentance before God. But before we as black people call America to repentance, we ourselves have to repent. That's what atonement is about. That's what reconciliation is about. All these black men you see out here, we're getting closer with God. And as we get closer with God, we get our strength, we get our unity, and we get our power to speak power to power here in the nation's capital.
Reverend Benjamin Chavis, thank you very much for stopping by and talking with us.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see exactly how the figures match up with what
they're going to
the
match
officials are
up.
going to say.
I'm going to be a prophet myself. Watch how the figures match up. The Park Service cannot look at this land and not say there's not 1 million people. The Capitol Police cannot look at this land and not say there's 1 million people. The Metropolitan Police, all 3 police departments are going to arrive at the same figure. We're over 1 million persons for the Million Man March. And to God be the glory.
All right, we shall see. Reverend Benjamin Chavis, thank you very much for coming and talking to us. As you can hear the band now striking up some more music behind us. We're going to go out now to John Holloman. John Holloman is further out in the mall with the crowd. John?
Leon, I've got some members of the Farrell family and the Williams family. Many of them are from the Philadelphia area, Camden, New Jersey. Some of them are from the Washington area. They're all related. They have 4 younger boys here with them. Robert Williams, you came a long way to get here. What brought you here?
Well, I come for the 1 million march to see how this would turn and see all the brothers come together. I also come for unity, for whereas we can get 1 million men together, we can get 1 million votes in the House, and we can change a lot of these laws.
You think there's a political message that ought to go to the people who work back over your shoulder in the Capitol building from this?
I definitely think there's a political message.
What do you think that message is?
Well, that we have to be heard and we need these affirmative action programs. We don't need them killed because you're going to hurt us in the long run.
Now, you know that Minister Louis Farrakhan was the organizer of this march, and there's been a lot of talk that nobody else could do this, but he is a man who could bring 1 million people together here on the Mall in Washington. How do you feel about him and what he says?
Well, from what you just said, if you just look around, you see the 1 million people, and if he's behind it, Louis Farrakhan, then power to Farrakhan.
Now, do you agree with everything he says? You've heard the things about a separate state for black people and separatism.
No, I do not agree with separatism. I believe we're all as one and one for all, and we got to learn to get along. It's gone too far.
All right, thanks for talking to me. They're as you know, Minister Farrakhan and the organizers of the march said it should be for black men, and these 2 people are obviously not black men. Pam and Joanne, tell me why you came and what you hope to get out of this.
I came to be a witness for history and also to witness 1 million black men come together and standing strong. And also I've come to witness these 4 young men here who are the next generation of black males in our family, to see them ascend to their place of strength and stand strong with other black men.
What message do you think they're going to get from this? What are you going to, when you take them home and they grow a little bit older and they're going to be able to see these pictures and see that they were here, what message do you want them to get?
I want them to know that they have unity, they have pride, and they have strength.
That's right.
I also want them to know that they are not alone as men and as black men, that there are brothers out there who support them. And I just want them to feel that male unity and that strength.
Yeah. Is it happening? Pam, do you feel that unity that people are talking about?
Definitely. That's why I came here, to feel, hear, and see the unity of all these beautiful black brothers out here. Not only black, but Hispanic, white, whoever.
What about Minister Farrakhan and some of his rhetoric, which sounds to me at least to be somewhat divisive?
He is. He's very controversial, very divisive, but who else could bring 1 million black men together?
So you think it's okay that he's the leader of the march?
I think it's okay. You may not agree with everything he has to say, but the point is, all these beautiful black men are out here today to be unified, to be one.
Right. Michael Williams, do you feel beautiful?
I definitely do.
What is it like to be in this crowd, to be a black man walking in here?
Well, I want my children to experience history, see it firsthand. It feels like I'm a part of something bigger than I am.
All right. Thank you all four of you, the Williams and the Farrell families here on the mall. Leon?
All right, thanks, John. You've just talked to a couple of members of the crowd here. Numbers of dignitaries are expected to be somewhere here in the audience here or on the stage at some point throughout the day, even if they don't participate in the program. As a matter of fact, we've seen members of the Congressional Black Caucus here. We have also seen or actually heard that we should be seeing sometime of the day in the crowd here people like Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder was also mentioned that he's also going to be seen somewhere here in the crowd today. Of course, we'll keep an eye out for all that. The crowd here is continuing to build, and we will continue with our coverage throughout the day here on CNN. Stay with us.
How many of you are willing to be part of a new political movement inside of this country? Keep the hand up. Put the hand down. How many of you believe Thank you very much. How many of you stand with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to help bring about this reality? Keep the hands up. Put your hands down. I thank you for helping me to clear up a few things that the press have been a little bit confused about. I would like to introduce my son Leonard, who's here with me today in his FOI uniform. He stands here with me as a representative of thousands and millions of young black boys who are looking to us to bring back and usher in a new reality for our families. Brothers, let's go home and get busy and be real serious when we go home. You tell people that I was a part of the march and I love the message. And brothers, we love the messenger. We love Louis Farrakhan because without him, none of us would be here today. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
The Chief of Staff to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, Brother Leonard Muhammad. Let's give him another warm round of applause. Peace. Yes, we're being told that the brothers are still coming. Coming in on 50, coming in on 395, coming in on 495, 95, everywhere. Brothers are continuing to come here. And the numbers are continuing to swell and continuing to climb. But again, we want to remind you to be very cautious, not to push forward too much or elbow too much. There's room here for everybody. We're going to take it all the way down to the Lincoln Memorial if we're not there already. They will know America will know that we were here. Our job here today, black man, is to make America to know her sins. This is why we're here, as we stand to atone, as we ask God to forgive us and to guide us. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Say it, brothers. Allahu Akbar. God is great. God is great. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Allahu Akbar. We want to bring back forward to the podium now a brother who represents the Nation of Islam in Florida and in the Caribbean. Once again, let's say assalamu alaikum to our brother minister, Rasul Muhammad.
Dear brothers, moving right along with the program, we have from Norfolk who is going to do a prayer for us and with us. Our brother, will you please receive him, Dr. Milton Reed. Bring him on with a warm round of applause, my brothers.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we stand today under the shadows of this statue of freedom on our nation's capital. It was erected there by an ex-slave, Philip Reed, when his master died, and there was no one else to do it. So we have come to say to Philip Reed, we are sorry that it took us so long to get here. Thank you, God, for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Thank you for Christian preachers and pastors and leaders from across this nation. We've come from Virginia, where all of this stuff started from, and we are here today to say that it is over. The struggle to be free is over. For as we atone for our sins, as we love each other, we know that the game that was organized and founded in Virginia, that old game is all over now. Keep us as we leave this morning's section, and may others at home join us, hold hands for us, pray for us, that this will be the turnaround day in our nation, and we will become, as of October the 16th, a new nation under God. In the blessed name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
All right, my dear brothers, at this point in time, we're about to enter a very important section and session of our program of spiritual atonement and recognizing our responsible roles as black men. So for the next few short moments, we will have a musical interlude, and then we will begin a very significant and important aspect of this whole event that deals with the spiritual atonement part and our recognizing our responsible roles. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Africa, Africa, say yeah, yeah. Africa, Africa, say yeah, Africa, yeah, Africa, oh, yeah. Paragon, Paragon, oh, say yeah, yeah. Paragon, Paragon, oh, say yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Dear family, strong black men, we are now entering another phase of our event, which moves us closer to the keynote address. Before that happens, I have to make this announcement. Among you in this large sea and ocean of black men, there are first aid units set up amongst you. So if there's anyone in need of any medical attention, please see one of those units that are among you. Please, they are there for you. Secondly, from this point forward, my dear beloved brothers, remember the theme of why we came is atonement. And from this moment forward, every brother out there is deputized to maintain order and discipline. Brothers, are you listening to me? You are deputized from this point forward to maintain order and discipline. Can we do that? Of course you can. The whole world is watching you, watching how we conduct ourselves. There is nothing more powerful than this kind of number, upwards of nearly 2 million black men in order, in discipline. That's power. So listen, when we came here, the park was clean. When we leave, let us leave it like we found it. Huh? Thank you, my brothers. Are you with me? Are you with me? Let's maintain order and discipline. At this point, as we enter this very important phase of our program of atonement, I'm going to bring back to the mic our brother Sheikh Ahmed Tijani, my brother who will recite the prayer Al-Fatiha, the opening prayer, the first chapter or surah of the Holy Quran. And when he is through, I will translate into English. Brother Ahmed Tijani. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise are due to thee, Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of this day of requital. Thee alone do we serve, and to thee do we beseech for thine aid. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Amen. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! God is the greatest. Allahu Akbar! God is the greatest.
Encourage people to have the courage to speak to each other about this problem and have the discipline to listen to each side. Now, listening to the speech of Mr. Clinton this morning, with me here on the set in Washington is Minister Akbar Muhammad. He is the international representative of the Nation of Islam and of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in Ghana, West Africa. He is here now to give us what is your response to the speech you just heard from Mr. Clinton this morning?
First of all, I'd like to say that I think that...
sorry to interrupt you, but you put the mic closer to your mouth so we can hear you.
I think that Mr. Clinton made the greatest speech of his life. I've listened to a few of his speeches, and what he has to thank is Minister Louis Farrakhan. For if Minister Farrakhan had not made the call for this march, Clinton would never have made the speech that he made today. It was an excellent speech. There may have been points that I disagreed with, but you don't expect to agree with every word that a person says every time. But he made the greatest speech of his life, and he admitted the problem that America has been hiding for years. He talked about family structure. He talked about the thinking of white people. In his speech, he said 3 times, clean your house. So I think that when this day is over and the world listens to his speech and sees what is going on here today, 1 million plus black men who have come out to say to the world that all is not well in that nation that Mr. Clinton said was the greatest nation on earth. And that's what this is about. And if Minister Farrakhan had not made this call, Clinton would have never delivered the greatest speech of his life.
All right. Well, Minister Muhammad, I'm going to ask you to sit here for just a second. We're going to take a break right now and come back and talk to Mr. Muhammad, who's going to be taking part in the program any moment now. So we want to try to get your remarks in here as quickly as we can. We'll take a break and come back with more coverage from Washington in just a moment. Sitting next to me is Minister Akbar Muhammad, who was listening to President Clinton's speech from Austin, Texas, just moments ago. And before the break, you made one remark that I've got to ask you to follow up on. You said that the speech that Mr. Clinton made this morning was the best speech of his life. I'm sure he's going to be surprised to have that kind of commentary coming from you. Why do you say that?
I would say it because he was truthful. He talked about the jail population. He talked about the thinking of white America. He talked about the problems of the inner city. In other words, because of this march, the problem of black America that has become a problem for America has been moved to the front burner in a speech that Mr. Clinton delivered today in Texas. And this speech was a speech that was a little longer than his usual speech. It dealt with the problem directly. It talked about the problems of black America and what America must do, what the American people must do. It talked about the issue of affirmative actions. And what we see coming from Mr. Clinton is he's echoing some of the things that Minister Farrakhan has put out. He talked about atonement. He talked about reconciliation, reconciling differences. He talked about black men going back and doing better by their family. And then he put that responsibility not only on the black community, but he put it on the entire American community.
But he did not mention Minister Farrakhan's name, perhaps, in his speech. But he did have some comments that have to be assumed to be directly aimed at Minister Farrakhan. If we're going to play a tape right now, and if you can listen, I know it's getting kind of loud back here. If you can listen, I want you to respond to the tape that we're about to play right now from Mr. Clinton's speech.
1 million men are right to be standing up for personal responsibility. But 1 million men do not make right one man's message of malice and division. No good house was ever built on a bad foundation. Nothing good ever came of hate. So let us pray today that all who march and all who speak will stand for atonement, for reconciliation, for responsibility. Let us pray that those who have spoken for hatred and division in the past will turn away from that past and give voice to the true message of those ordinary Americans who march. If that happens, the men and the women who are there with them will be marching into better lives for themselves and their families, and they could be marching into a better future for America.
All right, your comments on and your response to that. It sounded as though he was directing that exact phrase, that exact part of his speech toward Minister Farrakhan.
Well, he may have been. There's 2 points there. One is that the foundation that this house was built on. This house was built on slavery, the robbing and the kidnapping of black men and women from Africa, using their labor to build the wealth of America. So this house wasn't built on such a good foundation. The Nation of Islam is 65 years old in America. It has proven its ability to clean up the mess that America has made out of black people, young men and young women. Then the other point, Mr. Clinton himself may need more information. Maybe he needs to listen to Minister Farrakhan's tapes completely so he can hear it in context. And if he is listening to the news bites that come on these news stations, then he's hearing what other Americans hear, and he's victimized by those who control those news bites and try to paint an image of Minister Farrakhan that does not exist. I have been working with him for 30 years. 30 years. I know something about his heart and his desire for black people in America and throughout the world.
So you, with your experience working with Minister Farrakhan, you are convinced that he is not a divisive figure, that he is not a divisive message?
You got the proof right in front of you. Is this divisive? Is this divisive? There's more Christians than Muslims out there. This is not divisive. This shows you that as they talked about Minister Farrakhan, his roots were sunk deep into the black community because millions of black people know the heart of this man. So, therefore, they know the heart of Minister Farrakhan, so that's why they're out here today. I don't think that this is divisive. Look at the unity. Look at the peace. Look at how the press has been treated since they've been here. So it shows you that there's something there more than those 30-second bites. That image have been painted of Minister Farrakhan that has white America looking at him one way and black America looking at him another way.
All right, Minister Akbar Muhammad, thanks for taking time to talk to us. I know you're about to head to the stage right now. We'll listen to your remarks in just a moment.
Thank you very much.
More coverage from Washington, the side of the Million Man March, in just a moment. Stay tuned.
I would have never expected to begin with that you could have gotten this many people together for something that is not as a goal that is as specific as, say, Selma was, but it's obvious from what everybody has said, and if you listen to President Clinton's speech today, that the country recognizes now that there are serious problems, that blacks have continued to be disadvantaged in this country, and that a good part of it has to do with the fact that they're still not a part of the general society.
All right, Jack Nelson, correspondent for the LA Times. Thanks much for stopping by our bureau and talking with us. As you can hear, the crowd now striking up with the Black National Anthem. We ask you to stay tuned with us here at CNN as we continue our live coverage of the Million Man March in Washington. But there seems to be a huge crowd of people here on this hill, here on the grass side here of the west side of the U.S. Capitol. There's no way in the world we can tell exactly how many people are there. I don't even think we can get a camera shot of this. But it's almost as if this crowd back here just materialized. We did not see this crowd barely an hour ago or half an hour ago when I looked back up there last. As I said, the crowd up here is growing larger. Since John Holloman is also out in the mall with the crowd there. John?
I don't think I'm growing larger as the crowd is, Leon, but I am here with two people from a far distant area. Lee Haymore from Chicago, Reverend Fontaine Shockley of Salem, New Jersey, who are both here. Gentlemen, one of the messages of this day, when the Million Man March was announced for October 16th, 1995, it was announced that this would be a day of atonement. Reverend, what does that mean to you and to some of the other men who are here?
The Hebraic history of atonement stretches far and wide back into the days of the ancient. Here, personally, for me, the atonement is for the lackadaisical laissez-faire attitude in which I personally have had over the years. after having been afforded so many opportunities that were set forth by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Having gotten all those things, I have not used them to the fullest of my personal potential and my gifts and graces, and used them for the African American family, the African American population, the African American culture. So therefore, this is a time to wipe the slate clean with God, start anew with a clean slate.
I've talked to a lot of people here today who say they are not here to atone for anything that might have been done by them to people of other races, but it's all sort of a black against black atonement or black on black atonement.
They may very well be atoning for their personal affliction against their fellow brother or sister. And I'm sure that there are many here who should be atoning for personal sins against their brother or sister. I'm just atoning for as a clergy. Yes. I could be doing more as a clergy.
All right. Mr. Haymore, what about you? Are you here to atone for anything?
Yeah, well, I came here out of Chicago to follow a great man. A man that can take a young man off of drugs and stop the killing and stop the fighting and try to bring young men together and try to keep the young men out of the penitentiary. That's something that a lot of black men are headed to. Now, but I will follow any man that can stop the drugs and stop the killing.
Including Louis
Louis Farrakhan. I'm not following him because of his name. I'm following him because of what he have done. And I will go to the end of the earth to follow him.
All right. Well, Minister Farrakhan, as you know, has said a lot of things that are, are described as racist by other people. Do you take that as just part of the package of the man who is Louis Farrakhan?
You know, a lot of people say that Louis Farrakhan is racist, but a lot of people misinterpret what Louis Farrakhan was saying. But, even myself, I don't like what's going on in the world today, and I know a lot of more people don't like what's going on in the world today. That don't mean that you are racist because you dislike somebody that's doing something wrong. How can you like somebody that's doing something wrong?
Yeah. Reverend, there was a call made from the podium here just a few minutes ago to anoint, basically, Louis Farrakhan as the leader of black men in America. What do you think about that notion?
The job has been vacant for several decades. The fact that Louis Farrakhan came and stepped forth to take position, to be a leader, why not? The job's been open for many decades. He just happened to be the one to step forth and say, send me.
Is this man another Martin Luther King Jr., do you think?
There will never be another Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was the man of his time. Maybe possibly the Honorable Farrakhan could be the man of this time.
Remarkable comments from these two people here, Leon. We'll continue to take the pulse of this crowd and get back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, John Holliman. Now, we're going to have more coverage of this Million Man March and talk to some of the folks who are out here in the crowd in just a moment, so make sure you stay with us, folks.
The record of this event, for your records, Pennsylvania Avenue between 3rd Street and 14th Street. You can bring up your copy of today's date. There are 25 or more lost children from various locations around the country. They have been transported under the auspices of Child Protective Services in collaboration with the Million Man March to the lost children group at 3rd Street and Jefferson to your rear and to your right as you face the podium.